One, two, three, four.
I love all my friends. I love all my friends. I'm parking the car, turning off the lights.
Hello, you're listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. We are a general interest independent bookstore located in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. This year, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we've had to close our store and cancel in-person events. But Skylight is your neighborhood bookstore, and we are finding ways to create community even while we're far apart. In the coming weeks, we'll be putting out lots of new audio content to help you discover new books, connect with authors, and check in with your favorite booksellers. To learn more about how you can help keep Skylight alive, please visit our website at skylightbooks.com or check out our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram. You can subscribe to the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Handsell podcast, a recurring series from the Skylight Books podcast. My name is Mick Kowaleski. I am your podcast producer and co-host, joined as always by my co-host,
Maddie Gobbo, events manager.
Maddie. You got some pep in your step this morning.
I do, because I just had such a good interview with an author just before we got on this call, and I'm like just riding the high. So I'll talk more about her book a little bit later, and you guys will get to hear that interview next week.
Yeah, you could not wait to gush about that interview. Kind of like was a perfect capper for your work week, it sounded like.
Yes, it really brought me home into the weekend in a good mood.
Nothing better than a reaffirming author interview to keep your spirits up going into the weekend.
Yeah. How are you doing?
And, we're hanging in there. We're all hanging in there in this time of trouble and turmoil and a little bit of change. We've seen a little bit of change, and it's been kind of rad.
Kind of inspiring. I feel inspired.
What is this feeling? Is this hope? Hope. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. I never say this word. I just read it. It's hope. I don't know.
I'm suspicious.
Yeah, I'm unsure. So yeah, let's talk about this week because or try and talk about it as much as we can. We've seen the announcement of Minneapolis promising to rebuild their entire police department from the ground up, disbanding, and the police chief is withdrawing from police union negotiations, I saw, which is huge. We've seen Confederate statues and statues of Christopher Columbus being torn down and slave trading statues being torn down. Turns out, we've had lots of discussions about whether we should keep these statues up. Turns out the best way to do it is to just go out and tear the damn thing down and throw it into the river, and then just that's how we deal with it.
Yeah, just ask for forgiveness, not permission. I think that's a good motto to live by in 2020.
And you don't even have to ask for forgiveness because that implies that you did something wrong.
True. Good point.
What else? NASCAR banned the Confederate flag from all of their events, which is it's there's a lot of things that are happening right now that's why wasn't this done 20 years ago or even before that? And the answer is because we talked about it instead of doing it.
It has been just an onslaught this week. So much is happening in so many different sectors of our lives that is long overdue. I mean, to kind of bring it back around to the book world, we've had a lot of shakeups this week. first of all, there was the publishing paid me hashtag going around on Twitter where authors were disclosing their advances for all their past books. And it was a pretty rude awakening to see. I mean, I was aware of this problem already, but like to just see the actual numbers on some of these debuts from white authors versus debuts from authors of color who, you know, then went on to sell many, many books. You're seeing huge discrepancy. I mean, 800,000 for a debut versus, you know, 10,000 for Carmen Maria Machado's Her Body and Other Parties, which, you know, kind of changed fiction for forever. So, you know,
Yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting conversation to follow. And that transparency is very new to the publishing world. People don't really talk about advances and how they work and who gets them and why. But it drives a lot of, you know, the discourse on the other end of which books get marketing and publicity and which books get talked about and which books become book club selections and things like that. That's all driven by the advances. So now we're finally kind of going back to the source of a lot of that discourse and opening it up and seeing what's in there. And it's not pretty.
Yeah, not pretty at all. And you can extend this conversation beyond the book world. I think this is something that we talk about, you know, locally about how the publishing world operates, but it's, you know, the differences in salary, I think is I mean, it's obviously part of like the whole conversation about institutionalized racism, but it's also part of like this whole corporate culture of like not just talking about how much you make to your coworkers so that we don't have these conversations. So you're right, it's really important for us to see these conversations happening out in the open, like even further transparency, not even talking about what you're making with your coworkers, but like talking about what you're making with the rest of the world, so people can look and see like, wow, that is a huge difference. And I'm glad that people are finally feeling comfortable and, you know, feel like they have the agency to talk about it. We saw the whole Bon Appetit thing, the food magazine earlier this week too.
Oh man. I
I
just forgot about that for a moment.
yeah, just completely indicative of the problem. And for anyone who doesn't know what happened, essentially there's one of the assistant editors, Sola, I believe her name is, she had a really good Instagram story post about how much less she was paid than her white coworkers. She wasn't paid for like video appearances. She was making like $50K a year or something like that, which is substantially less than people that she had more experience than. And you know, I watch those Bon Appetit videos like regularly, and it's definitely uncomfortable to see her. I mean, especially now, go back to those videos and watch them like call her into frame and like ask her questions about a certain like technique or something, and to know that she was being paid like significantly less than everyone involved in that video. So thankfully the editor-in-chief resigned from Bon Appetit, and a lot of her white coworkers definitely joined her in calling for greater equality. What else happened in the book world this week? There's one big controversy that I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking about. Joanne. For those of you who don't know, J.K. Rowling has done it again.
They call her JK because she's got to be kidding.
Yeah. So, I mean, J.K. Rowling, author of Harry Potter, enormously rich. Is she like the number 2, number 3 richest woman in the world, something like that? She has fallen in with a school of thought in the UK, which is much more kind of dominant and virulent discourse, though of course we have a lot of it over here too, of radical feminists. They call themselves gender critical feminists, but basically what they are is trans exclusionary, or for short, TERF, because they don't believe that trans women are really women,
Mhm.
and that they're all running some kind of scam to, I don't know. I don't even want to go into it because it's really insulting and dehumanizing. Um, but yeah, basically, Rowling posted in support of. It was so like inside baseball. She was posting
Mhm.
about some blog post by some other radical feminist, and basically, Rowling comes to the conclusion that trans women erase the experience and existence of cis women and lesbians. I don't even know. I mean, it's just like, JK, you could have just sat there and ate your food, like you
Yeah,
could have just enjoyed your millions and millions of dollars, your legions of adoring fans.
especially since there's so much else going on in the world right now. We're seeing like worldwide protests over police brutality and like black rights. And she just like pops in and be like, hey, no, you guys got a lot going on. Trans women are not women. Bye. All right, see you later. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely a racial element in this too, because a lot of the movement for Black Lives Matter is associated with the trans movement for rights, and Black trans rights. Tony McDade was one of the 3 Black people killed within a span of a couple of days, and he was a trans man. And it, it's just, yeah, it feels incredibly insensitive and tone deaf to be calling into question the identity and humanity of people at a time when we are seeing mass uprisings for the rights of people to live, unmolested by figures in authority. And yeah, it's just it's a huge bummer. I was a Harry Potter fan, of course. Like, I grew up at
yeah.
that time. I would go to the midnight releases. I would stay up all night reading the new books.
Mhm.
Um, and they brought me a lot of joy. But now looking back at them, I have a totally different experience. And it's not just because I dislike J.K. Rowling's online presence, which is bad,
Mhm.
but it's because if you
Right.
look at them as an adult, having read a lot of books, a lot more books than just Harry Potter, you start to see that these books are not entirely original. They're actually a very canny and polished fusion of a bunch of different Western fantasy tropes, and specifically British fantasy tropes. And
Mhm.
along with those tropes come racism and bigotry, because those are really pretty baked in, especially in the British fantasy community, or the classic fantasy, which was all written by white men. Um,
Mhm.
and so when you look at these characters as an adult who understands the historical context of a lot of them, you start to see, oh, the race of hook-nosed bank goblins that control all the money in this world, that sounds a lot like our the conspiracy theory about Jews running the world. It sounds a lot
Yeah.
like a caricature. The subservient little house elf who only wears a tea towel, that's a caricature of colonial Indians, that's been repurposed as this fantasy element. So whether or not Rowling knew she was doing this, she was, in creating the Harry Potter world, also creating this kind of alternate map of biases and bigotry that existed in her real world. And I think it's worth having that conversation among people who think of themselves as Harry Potter fans, to be
Mhm.
like, do you like, these aren't actually escapist fiction. As
Yeah.
much as we all want to believe that they are, and we want to go to Harry Potter world, and we want to get a wand, and we want to drink our butter beer,
Mhm.
they're not an escape at all. They reproduce the problems of our world, like, exactly.
Yeah. And I
um,
think it's also worth talking about how she has, you know, done a lot of revising of her own work. The whole like, oh, Dumbledore's gay now thing, and the whole like, oh, wizards just used to shit on the floor and then magic it away. And like you couldn't talk about all these other things. Like if you're really like looking at what your work is and the things that you maybe want to like bring more attention to or maybe like change, the things that you've listed are probably like should be way higher on the top of the list than like the, you know, the toilet humor or the toilet functions of wizards, you know.
Yeah, and I think all of that kind of backpedaling is an attempt to make the books seem like something that they aren't. That they're this, you know, fully realized world that's complex and has all the kind of nuance that our real world does. But actually, her books are all about categories and judgment and placing individuals into these boxes so that we can identify with or identify against them. I mean, the books begin with you know, a hat that tells children what their life is going to be like. Like, that's insane. Yeah. And that there are 4 houses in Hogwarts. One of them is for good people, one of them is for nerds, one of them is for fat people, and one of them is for straight up evil people. Like, those are the 4 kinds of people.
Wait, is Hufflepuff the one with fat people?
Yeah, I mean, that's like what's kind of implied is that they're, you know, or maybe not fat, but like they're kind of like the slow-witted, you know, like they don't really have a lot of their own ideas or verve. They kind of go along with whatever, you know, like like Hufflepuff is like not like a house anyone wants to be in. I guess probably now there are people who have like retconned it into being something better, but and that's one of the great things about Harry Potter is that it created this whole fan universe that took ownership and did kind of address a lot of these issues that Joanne didn't. But I just think it's insane to be like, okay, so there are 4 kinds of people, and these are them.
Right. Exactly.
And yeah, so it's really not surprising that she has continued in her life outside of the Harry Potter universe to be obsessed with categories and fitting people into her boxes, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right. It is a little ironic, by the way, that Harry gets put into Slytherin and then chooses to go into Gryffindor. So it's almost like the hat wanted him to put him one way, but Harry decided that he was something else. Very strange. Almost like
Familiar.
That was a little reminiscent of like maybe the trans experience a little bit, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we should also point out that there exists in Harry Potter world a potion that can transform you into any other person that you want.
Right. Like you literally envision this whole universe where this is possible. And then you're taking a step back and be like, but it can't happen here. That's not how this world works. Yeah, and there's yeah, you're right. There's this really intense desire to do something performative and then like not back it up. You know, to say things like, again, to like tweet that Dumbledore is gay and then have the opportunity in a prequel movie that you are doing, that you're writing, you know, to showcase that, but you don't. Like that's like keeping all the, you know, if you wanted to make that text instead of like a tweet that you made, you had the opportunity and you chose not to. So
yeah, it's like not even subtext. It's like, you know, alternate text, like in a different
right
after the fact. Like
it's extended universe.
You don't get credit for ideas that you have after you've published the book. Like, I'm sorry, that's not part of the book. Like
yeah, exactly. And you can't like and when you have the opportunity to actually make that concrete in something that you're writing and you choose not to, like you can't just say like, well, he is because I said so in an interview or something like that. You know, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Oh boy, anything. So we're going to be living in a post Harry Potter world, I think, after this. Let me ask you, is there any series that you want to give a little like a little bit of a shine to right now, a little bit of a shout out that maybe is a little friendlier towards
yeah. I mean, I would
or,
say Ursula Le Guin's books of Earthsea are just incredible. Like my boyfriend got me the collected books of Earthsea for Christmas this year, and I was so delighted. I mean, I hadn't revisited those since I was 9, and I read them while I was sick, and I just like left Earth. Like I just went to Earthsea, and I didn't come back for a long time. And it was great. I think Ursula Le Guin is such a good writer for kids who are into fantasy, but want kind of like a more expansive version of it, because she comes from this place of anthropological curiosity. Like she's genuinely really interested in people and how people form cultures and societies. And she comes from, her parents were both anthropologists. So you get this fullness in her worlds that you don't see in a lot of other fantasy. Like, I mean, with Harry Potter, there are so many unresolved questions, like the question about, bathrooms at Hogwarts. Like, they're like, there's a lot of like rules of the world that are not spelled out for you. And in a lot of ways that's fine, because when you're a kid, you don't really think about that. You just go in and you're like on board, whatever. It's easier to suspend your disbelief. But I think with Ursula Le Guin, like, she's so rewarding, because when you go back as an older person, you feel that depth and you feel the care and the detail that she puts into all of her worlds. And I think the other important thing about Ursula Le Guin is that her worlds involve a lot of different kinds of people. Like there is never, a white savior that everything revolves around. Like she writes these multivocal novels. Like with Earthsea, you start out with a character who is dark-skinned, who's poor, and who is from kind of like an outer island in this system of islands. So that character ascends to power, and then you kind of switch viewpoints into a lot of other different characters from different cultures. So even though it has like that epic sweeping feel of the Harry Potter books, you're also coming at this world from a bunch of different angles. And you're not just doing the standard hero's journey, which I think is, it's a very compelling form, and it's been around a long time. But I think when we think about literature for children, feeding them something that is always about one hero saving the day, or one chosen teen who has to sacrifice themselves for, to stave off the apocalypse or whatever. Like the stakes are always insanely high, and the kind of exceptionalism of that narrative. Kids really respond to it because kids want to think that they're the hero, they're exceptional, but that isn't really how the world works. And I think if you can broaden their idea of what a hero really could be, or all the different kinds of heroes that exist, you can raise kids that think about the world as this multivocal place, and this place where change doesn't happen from one person with special abilities. It happens from a coalition of people, which is what we're seeing right now. Change wasn't happening with individual politicians going on crusades, but it is happening now that there is a coalition of people across this country joining their voices together. And that's like a truer version of thinking about changing the world, because you want to encourage kids to feel that they have that power, but you also don't want to lie to them and tell them that the only way that they will be able to exercise that power is through this single-minded self-sacrificial path, where they'll be rewarded at the end by the powers that be or whatever. So yeah, I would say Ursula Le Guin's a great place to start. There's also, there's so many good new fantasy series coming out, and often written by authors of color. Off the top of my head, Nnedi Okorafor has some really great sort of Afrofuturist epic fantasy. Who else? Jean Luen Yang does some fantastic graphic novel series, American Born Chinese, Boxers and Saints. What else? Oh, Amulet by, I'm going to get his name wrong. His last name's Kibushi. That's another graphic novel series, fantasy, with really beautiful and strange art and a diverse cast. So yeah, there's tons of great new stuff out there right now for kids who resonate with a fantasy world, but you don't have to go to the old standbys anymore. There's lots of good stuff, I promise.
There's a lot of great stuff, absolutely. I gave my brother Children of Blood and Bone, My brother's 13, he's 14 now. He loved it, so I'll give that one a shout out. But I don't have the personal experience to back it up like you do. That's why I asked you. Great person to ask. And yeah, Ursula Le Guin, you can't, I don't know if I've ever been steered wrong by Ursula Le Guin. Never read something that I've been disappointed by. So in that regard, I can definitely back up that.
Oh yeah, I
that
should also mention there's dragons. So just in case that helps sway you, there's a lot of dragons in the books of Earthsea.
Good way to get me on board with anything. Just show me a dragon. I'm in, man. I'm in. Whew, yeah. Let's that's a good pivot into what we're reading this week. What have you been up to?
Yeah, well, like I said at the beginning of this episode, I just had an author interview, and the interview was with the debut novelist Jean Keong Fraser, and it was about her book Pizza Girl, which I just read for the second time. And I just freaking love this book. It's set in LA. It's about an 18-year-old pizza delivery girl who's pregnant and spiraling. It has, if you're an Otessa Moshfegh fan, it has some of that like female slackerdom vibes, but I think it's much more tender at its heart. Otessa's, can be kind of cold, which I love about her. But with Pizza Girl, you really fall for this character, for her voice. She's unnamed, which is why I keep calling her Pizza Girl. She's just someone who's kind of right on the edge of her life, of her adult life, and she's teetering, back and forth between kind of two versions of who she could be. And she makes some really bad and terrifying choices, but I really rooted for her so much, and I think it's a testament to the writing of this book. You're kind of in her head the whole time, and I just really loved being there and being with her on her difficult journey. So I hope you guys check that one out. We're gonna release that episode, that interview with Jean, on Wednesday the 17th. So it's coming soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So keep an eye out for that. Drop that on the 17th.
Mick, what are you reading?
Well, after Between the World and Me and between all of I've been reading Twitter. Let me put it that way. I've just been reading Twitter and reading a bunch of articles. I'm hoping to get into Gogol's Dead Souls soon, which is sort of like this picaresque satire about a man who, if I'm recalling correctly, a man who trades in souls, namely the souls of serfs. So I'm hoping that can be a good little companion to sort of this growing distrust of capitalism and labor rights and stuff like that.
I love Gogol. I think a lot about his short story The Nose.
I haven't read it.
Oh my gosh, it's about a man his nose leaves him. The nose takes on its own sentience and departs his face, and quickly rises in the ranks in the Russian army. Becomes a person of great importance.
Oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of sharp humor that I need right now, and the Russians are always really good at that, I feel. Mm-hmm. All right, and what we've got coming up next, you had an interview with Anji.
Yes. So this week and next week, we're going to be talking to our partners, where we've been working with these two community organizations to distribute free books to children in need, and also unhoused people staying in emergency COVID shelters. So the two organizations we've been working with are the LA Public Library's Street Fleet team. We're going to be talking to them next week, and with the Punk Rock Marthas, which is the organization Anji Williams founded. You'll hear more about that in my conversation with her. Anji is one of my favorite people to work with. I've worked with her on a lot of school visits, and she does so so much for the public schools here in LA. She's a public school advocate, and she's just like one of those people who, you know, is vital to the community, and I'm so glad I got to talk to her and that we're working with her on this campaign. And if you guys are interested in donating, we've extended our deadline on the Indiegogo campaign, so you can head over there and donate money directly to purchase free books for both of these organizations. We have options for both, so you can select which one you want and how much money you want to spend. And it's just like a really great way to keep our community reading and get books to people who need them most right now.
Awesome. And yeah, so look forward to that in just like a couple seconds. Yeah.
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 Hold tight.
Hold tight. Buckle up. Go and get right into that. So yeah, Maddie, it's been great talking to you as always. The listeners will hear your tones in just a few more seconds. But I'll talk to you next week. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Enjoy the interview,
Bye.
guys.
Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome back to the Handsell. I'm Maddie Gobbo, events manager here at Skylight Books. Today, we're so delighted to welcome onto the podcast a longtime friend of Skylight Books and a true force for good in our community, Anji Williams, the founder of Punk Rock Marthas. Anji Williams is a public school teacher and advocate. She is also the founder of this organization that we're going to be talking about today. Anji and I have worked together on several very cool school visits. And I'm so delighted every time I get to hang out with her. Welcome to the podcast, Anji.
Thank you. And the feeling is mutual.
So I asked you on the podcast today because we've been working together on a very cool project with your organization, Punk Rock Marthas. We started an Indiegogo campaign, and one of the rewards on that campaign that you can purchase is a $50, $100 donation of books to kids in our community. And the distribution of those books is being handled by Punk Rock Marthas. Let's first sort of introduce our listeners to this organization because they do so much good in our community. Anji, can you tell us about who are the Punk Rock Marthas and where did they come from and what do they do?
Sure, thank you. So, and also there's a really great YouTube video a student made a few years ago called Who Are the Punk Rock Marthas? But we were formed 11 years ago, which I guess we're going on 12 years now, on the Bernstein campus here in Hollywood. And we were a catch-all club. And, you know, Speak was really big. Lori Hall Sanderson's book, Speak. And the goody girls that do crafts and cool stuff were the Marthas, but they were preppy. So we were like, oh, we want to be like them, but we don't want to be preppy. We'll be punk rock, right? So if we were going to form a nonprofit now, we like Dave Grohl would not pick the name we picked, but that was our name. We thought it was cute, and it stuck. So basically, you know, we do community service, and we're very involved with the unhoused community. We do a lot of soup kitchen stuff, and we do a lot of, you know, making of toiletry kits and you know, coat drives, blanket drives, things like that. But what we were realizing is that that's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. And if you're not going to affect bigger change in your community, you can go to the soup kitchen every night of the week for the rest of your life. I mean, hopefully not, but there are going to be certain people who are always in need. And we wanted to sort of change the system in any kind of way. And so one of the things that we were thinking about was how education is, and how there's a disparity, especially in our communities, right, with book ownership. And we got the Jim Pre-Lease data on how important having a home library is, and how much it makes you a reader, and how much that sticks with you. And we just thought, look at these kids that don't have, including the Marthas, by the way, look at us. Look at these people who grew up not being read to, not having access to cool books at home. not wanting to check out books from the library sometimes because they're worried about fines, which the library's been great at working on. And so we just started getting really cool books and getting them in to kids' homes and adapting our old classrooms and giving class sets to take home to our old teachers and just making that a thing that's grown and grown and grown.
So what do you see as the benefit of making sure that these kids have access to free books?
Well, I mean, unreleased did a really large study, and I'm reticent to use language that's basically coded racist language about underperforming, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, it's pretty simple. If you have books in your house, you are going to, number one, more likely to enjoy reading. Number two, be a stronger reader, and your reading level is tied to your academic achievement across all subjects, right? Because if you're not a strong reader, if you're a struggling reader, that affects you in history, that affects you in science, it even affects you in math, right? So people who don't grow up around books they're far more likely to drop out. They're far more likely to have all kinds of other issues, not to mention that these books are cool and they lead you into a lot of self-awareness. But academically, books are really important because people who drop out of high school, they're just, that leads to incarceration rates, that leads to lifelong poverty rates, that leads to homelessness, etc. So we felt that getting books into kids' homes and getting kids excited about books was one way that we could plant some seeds that would turn into all kinds of beautiful, a garden of beautiful things.
I love that. And I think we're kind of seeing a version of this play out in the general reading public right now, where everyone and their mom is ordering anti-racist books right now. The New York Times nonfiction bestseller list is all anti-racist books. And I think people do understand that it begins with books. Like you have to start with access to ideas in order to figure out how to enact real world change, right?
And I think that actually, as someone who has done workshops on being an anti-racist teacher, that work is our work. And I mean that not as the Marthas, I mean as us as individuals, because we've been brought up in a broken racist system. And if you can't understand how it impacted you and your beliefs, then you certainly are just going to be taking your racist self everywhere you go and damaging people of color. So I'm really, really excited that people are sharing those lists and buying those books. And I hope that they read them and sit with that discomfort. We're actually, and just so you know, we've ordered a bunch of copies of How to Be an Anti-Racist, and that is going to be our grown-up summer read. So we're going to be doing a giveaway and doing some more of the work within our group, but also encouraging those conversations with adults.
That's fantastic. So that's How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi.
Yes.
Very cool.
And we also just want to say this too. We love Dr. Kendi. He's rad. But, there are a disproportionate number of Black men and women. Like, we feel like women are always kind of the last to be acknowledged in their own community, so in their own movement. And so I believe that we're going to do a second reading, and we'll do When They Call You a Terrorist by Patrisse Cullors, just because we don't want it to all be centered around men in a movement.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I mean, yeah, again, you can see this happening in the killers of George Floyd being brought to justice, and Breonna Taylor's killers are still on the force, getting their full paychecks.
Right. And that's really, really, people are not angry enough about Breonna Taylor. People just are like, as soon as George Floyd's the other three officers were arrested, like there was like a fire extinguisher. I'm not the movement didn't die, but just that, the fact that this this award-winning EMT was shot, in her home. And that no one, there's I don't know if you even saw that the police report yesterday was uploaded and it's blank. I mean, there's just not enough rage for Breonna Taylor.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think narrative is partly to blame here, and it's something that we as storytellers and book people need to look at very closely, is the way that we elevate stories about men as heroes or as wrongfully accused or wrongfully imprisoned, and then women are kind of like, oh, they're these quieter, more domestic stories. They're not about moving the mass of humanity. That's what men's stories are for, and we need to really rethink that.
Yes.
That wasn't a question. I'm just thinking out loud. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit about how the book distribution program is going right now, because I know it can't be easy, what with COVID and just general mess of our city right now.
Yeah. So, well, one of the things we early on were taking books to some of the grab and go centers, and then that I think as the numbers increased, it was a little more challenging because the COVID concerns. And so we went through, like, our friends at the St. Francis Center, they were packing the books in their pantry boxes because they're a pantry. And that was really cool because they serve, hundreds of families. So they had a lot of books, and we did several rounds of that. So hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of copies of books going in food pantry boxes in, they're near downtown. So that was also cool because we didn't have as many, we didn't have as much distribution there. We also worked with a teacher at RFK who distributed, she delivered to her students contact free. And we started Martha Book Mail. So we actually just started mailing them. We've ordered some really cool envelopes, and we're going to offer that a lot more. And not only is it great and contactless, but in addition, it supports the amazing United States Post Office, and boy, do we love our postal service. So, so that's one of the options. Another way that we are distributing books, and we've been really blessed because you were so generous in giving us some beautiful books. And I don't know if people understand how gorgeous the books you gave us are, but you gave us like some really great titles, some great timely titles, and then some of them are signed, and they're just so beautiful. And we're super excited about that. So we're doing Martha Book Mail, and also we have, for example, we've gotten some money from some neighborhood councils to work with specific schools, which is cool. That's helpful. So we're going to be setting up at different elementary schools, and as students come in, because tomorrow is officially the last day of school. So as parents bring in their textbooks, I know, like right down the street from you, Grant Elementary, we will not be there because they have a strict protocol, but there will be like a stack of books, and that parents can drop off their textbooks, but they can also pick up some summer reading. Next Thursday, we are doing an event at Paramoya Elementary, which is just for us, so that people can come by, students can come by, and their neighborhood council has ensured that every single student is going to get a book for summer, which we're actually doing something cooler than that. But so we're making a presence where there's time, because with the uprising, some of the end of the year protocols for schools have really been altered. That was a little harder to schedule. So we'll be mailing stuff and being physically present where we can.
Wow. I mean, you guys are busy. It sounds like. About how many people are working with Punk Rock Marthas right now?
Right now, we have a few of the high school students that are in the periphery for a lot of reasons. They're dealing with high school student issues and parental issues and safety concerns. So we have about 12, 13 of us that are core board members that are basically original, that are, now they're like graduating from college. But about 13 of the original Marthas have been coming together and keeping stuff together during COVID.
That's so cool. So a lot of these board members started out as high school students working with you 11 years
All of
ago.
them.
Wow.
All of them. Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and we just did a bunch of hospitality kits for Project Room Key, which is the program that puts unhoused in some of the vacant hotel rooms. So not only did they need toiletries, but they also needed they needed entertainment in them, and they needed snacks. They were infinitely cooler. So yeah, we just did like 550 of those.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So what kind of response have you guys gotten from the community in the last couple of months? Anything stand out to you?
Does anything stand? I mean, well, when we first started giving books away, this is my thought too, because the author of The First Rule of Punk, who, Celia, first of all, that was one of my favorite books that came out, obviously, in the past few years. And I started a reading decathlon, and that was one of the selections, and I love her so much. Like, I don't know her personally, but I just think she's super rad. And she reached out. First of all, we were asking for money, and she made a donation, which is cool because she didn't know us. And then she asked, like, how do we do this? And I just said, when you're going to start something, it's really, really hard to start. But it's a lot easier to get people to support you when you've been doing something, So that's been very, very cool. Now that we're 7 years into summer reading, and now that there's COVID, people feel a lot more comfortable supporting us because we've been giving out thousands and thousands of books for a handful of years now. We're not just saying, here's a GoFundMe, here's what we want to do. There's a lot of that, and I understand apprehension. So we've had some success with donations. We've had some success with grants. And also just, I think that we're the right amount of like socially active, social justice, interested in a lot of, I said one time, this is really funny, I thought that our tagline could be, we're not the Key Club. Like Punk Rock Marthas, we're not the Key Club. So, now I feel like there's some love there. We're also, and I'm going to tell you a little side thing. We redid the Elliott Smith mural and origami, and did a fundraiser some years ago. And by the way, Mary, her favorite Elliott Smith song is Rose Parade, just FYI. Anyway,
I didn't know she was an Elliott Smith fan. Oh my gosh, we got to talk about this.
She used to be. So we redid that, and we did a fundraiser for actually a trans group and for some charities that he'd been fond of. Anyway, and that was so cool, for us to do art projects, because we started in art, and then, we get bogged down with like books and soup kitchen and books in soup kitchen, which is so cool. But we did apply for a grant, and we do have a really cool mural we're going to be working on this summer, also with Jennifer Corson, a local artist that we've been talking about for a long time. And so we're really excited to see so much support and have people contacting us about things we haven't done in a while and been wanting to do.
Where's this mural going to be? Can you tell me?
I'll just say it's in Hollywood.
Oh, all right. I'll keep my eyes peeled for it.
Well, we'll let you know. We still have to go through we have to get the permit for it. So, but that's been something I've wanted to get back to, because this will be another community building project. It will be not just us. And it's timely, even though we've been working on it, actively working on it for like 7 months, but now it's super timely. And it's good to be supported. It's good to be supported in a time like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our listeners who are into what Punk Rock Marthas are doing, how can they get involved? How can they support you guys?
Oh, well, I mean, well, one, they can follow us on social media, and that's free. Um, we're a little bit slow on the Facebook because, yes, we hate Mark Zuckerberg. I said it. We're on Insta and we're on Twitter, and interestingly, we don't have the same following on those two platforms. But we do have a presence on both. And that's great if you want to support us there. We do have PayPal, and our links are on both of those if people feel moved and they want to make a donation, if they want it to specifically be toward something, if they want it to go for books, they can put that in the memo, or they want it to be for people experiencing homelessness, for the unhoused community, they can do that too. But we are all volunteer. So every penny that we get goes straight back into the community, and we're able to do an awful lot with it.
Very cool. And are you looking for more volunteers, more high school students who might be interested?
Oh, we are always looking for more volunteers. That's the one problem with having high school students, is that they graduate. Like, we just lost, I don't want to say lost, but when they graduate, a lot of them go away to college, or even if they're local, they're just so busy their freshman year.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard for college freshmen and college sophomores to come and volunteer with us, even if their heart's in it. Like, sometimes around the holidays we see them, but it's challenging. So we're always looking for fresh young volunteers that are motivated, because we constantly need to replenish those hours.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. Well, you heard it here. Sign up for Punk Rock Marthas. Get a cool T-shirt. Do they get a T-shirt if they volunteer with you guys?
Yes, of course.
There you go. You get a free T-shirt. Totally worth it. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about? Any other cool projects you're excited about, or other news you want to share?
The only thing I really wanted to say, because it's you and me here, is I just wanted to tell your listeners, and by the way, if you're listening to a Skylight podcast, I think we'd be really cool friends, because Skylight is the coolest business, and I'm so glad you guys had an Indiegogo campaign, and that we didn't lose you in COVID. We've made a real conscientious effort to not support Bezos and Amazon, because they're predatory and they're awful, and I think people really need to think about not only their mind and their consciousness and all these anti-racist books, but they need to think about where they're spending their money.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to just say that I'm really glad. But additionally, I just wanted to talk for like a quick second about the fact that you and I, I got money from the Hollywood United Neighborhood Council, and we got Christian Robinson this school year. We got Christian Robinson to come out for the kids at Cherimoya, and every kinder, first, and second grader got an autographed copy of his book, and they got to hear him speak. And I just think that people should know, that was like one little media post. There's so many cool things that we're doing, and so cool to work with you, and everyone should just know how rad you are all the time.
Oh, stop, Angie. I'm going to cry. I mean,
no.
That Christian Robinson event was such a highlight, like maybe of my whole year. He's delightful, and he drew me a big fox to hang up in my office, and I still have it up there. And he's just, that was kind of one of those events where I was like, this is why indie bookstores matter. Not just because we can offer an alternative to Amazon, but because we can do stuff like this where we partner with local organizations and give books to kids, like, and we get the author and they get to meet the author for free. Like, Amazon's not doing that. So
Exactly.
that really fed my spirit. So thank you for working with me on that and all of the hard work you put into getting those books paid for.
Yes, and big fan of Fairfax. Christian Robinson is a Fairfax Lion alum, so woohoo! He's LA. He's an LA guy, so we love him extra.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Anji, thank you so much for your time today and for telling us all about the great work you're doing, and keep it up.
Woohoo. Thank you so much, Maddie. Thank you for having us, and thank you for listening to this long podcast about books and homelessness. Y'all are rad.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.
I see